Welcome to the Don't Die Rusty podcast. I'm Rick Hanson, and we will be talking about living, not dying. We're all on this adventure together, and we will be interviewing people who inspire us to live our best lives. People with various backgrounds who will walk us down the trails they took to not die rusty. Adventure in life are many things to many people. It could be a sprint or an endurance race, but with each adventure, we become a better version of us. We hope you keep chasing those dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty.
Well, hello, Don't Die Rusty Nation. I'm Ricky Brule, and I will be your host tonight, along with the one and only Rick Hanson. Rick, how you doing, bud? Everything okay after the big storms you guys had last night?
Yeah, I mean, we just got a lot of rain and a little wind, but other places got hail and golf ball size hail and tennis ball size hail, I guess. But we
Jeez.
ended up all right with a little rain, and we got about 2 inches of rain, and we needed it.
Yeah, well, that's good.
So,
Yeah, it's been a wet season, but it dried up there for a little while. My vegetable garden suffered for a minute, but yeah, things are going good here. Just it's August. Gary V, he says August is the time to hustle, right? While everybody else is on their heels. So Susan and I were just trying to just keep pushing forward, don't die rusty, and then her art business and stuff. So
we're good. We have
yeah.
the cool Deadwood Nights is coming up in Deadwood this weekend, and
Oh,
it's a big deal in Deadwood, South Dakota, and probably won't make it up there, but because I'd rather go in the woods and not talk to anybody. Yes, I have to say, and with our guests on tonight, they might understand this too. On Sunday, I went up into the woods and didn't even open my mouth to talk to myself. And that was the most peaceful day there was. So
That's awesome. Yeah, man. Well, Rick, we've got another exciting episode for everyone tonight. A couple weeks ago, we spoke with Wild Mountain Man Dan, and for those of you out there who haven't listened to that episode 25, it was just an awesome episode. All the people we keep talking to, it just keeps getting better and better. And so I urge you to go back and listen to that episode. Promise you won't forget it. Wild Mountain Man Dan, he was just a couple of days from participating as an instructor for a fast-growing event called the Pacific Northwest Survival Games. So tonight we're joined by two founders of the event, Tony Peniche and Phil Robinson. How's it going, gentlemen?
It's going good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for being on. This is really cool. You guys are just coming off of the survival games. And Tony, you had said that you're kind of just getting over the hangover from all of that and all the things that were leading up to it. So, yeah, if you guys could just real quick before we get too deep into that, let's just get an introduction from you guys. Tony, if you want to start, and then when you're finished, Phil, you can go ahead and jump in. Just tell us a little bit about what you do and what you've been up to.
Yeah, I'm Tony Peniche. I'm the co-founder of the Pacific Northwest Survival Games. And I'm a marketing and branding consultant and serial entrepreneur. I have a long history of building and selling companies. I definitely, don't want to hold on to anything for too long. I'm definitely not an operator. I'm more of like the visionary, and I like to build things, sell it, and move on to the next one. And and Phil's actually been my wingman on several of the businesses that we've done in the past. So Phil, I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, so Phil Robinson was doing a lot of corporate events down in Florida before COVID. COVID happened, ended up moving back home, be close to family, and that's kind of when Tony and I reconnected and ended up coming up with the idea for the Pacific Northwest Survival Games. We kind of have a large toolbox that we operate from. We're both very interested in expanding our knowledge of just about anything you can imagine. So we're always looking and interested in learning different skill sets and branching out in different ways. So,
right on. How did you guys meet, or have you known each other for a really long time?
We met a few times briefly, like back when I was a fashion designer and photographer. Like way back in the day, like 2011, 2012, that kind of era, that kind of time frame. And then I believe it was in 2013 or 14 where Phil came in and wanted to intern at one of my companies called NXT Industries. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the idea of WeWork. like a creative co-working space.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like back before WeWork was a thing. I had 2 buildings in Portland, and we had about 65 small businesses under my roofs. And it was curated by myself. I basically just only let people that I liked, to have an office there. People that were multifaceted, passionate about whatever their craft was. And I tried to keep it really diverse. So we had photographers, graphic designers, video production, but we also had like physical stuff too. So we had artists, clothing designers. We actually had some lawyers in there too. A little bit of everything. And so a one-man business could behave a lot like a 20-man business by leveraging the other talents in the room, and everybody got along. And it was just like a really, really exciting, cool culture. It's actually like the one business that I've sold that I regret selling, because it was just so much fun. I miss it a lot.
Yeah.
Being around all those creative people that were so motivated, like being around that energy all the time was really, really special. And anyways, Phil came in to intern, and then that's really where the real part of the friendship was created.
I'll jump ahead of you just a little bit and kind of tell them the story about how I got my foot in the door. So I was going to school for audio video production, and I was DJing and playing music and stuff like that. And Tony and his business partner Micah needed some microphones and audio equipment for one of their New Year's Eve parties that they were throwing. So they reached out to me and said, hey, can we borrow some gear? I said, yeah, totally, no problem. You guys can borrow whatever you want. The only stipulation is that I get to take Tony out to lunch and pick his brain about what you guys are working on and possibly interning with you guys. So that was kind of the trade-off right there. Gave them some gear, and then I took Tony out because I knew that they had a lot of stuff going on I wanted to be a part of. So that was kind of the main introduction.
Nice. So it makes sense that he would bring you on. You showed like initiative right away, not afraid to just dive right in there and get going. That's really cool.
Yeah. When Phil wants to do something, nothing's going to stop him. And I like that in people.
Yeah, for sure. So Phil, tell us a little bit of the story of how the Pacific Northwest Games got started.
So kind of the catalyst for it was once I had moved back from Florida during COVID, I kind of had a yearning for getting back outdoors because it's not really something that you can do comfortably down in South Florida very often. It's just muggy and hot and bugs all over the place. So when I moved back, I made a point to start working on building like a core gear bag for just putting in the truck, going out on weekend adventures. I just wanted to explore the state and just see what was out there. So I ended up getting a map of Oregon, and I put it up on the wall, and I started throwing darts at the map. Wherever a dart would hit, I'd be like, all right, I'm going to go out there this weekend and we're just going to see what we find. And so I'd put it up on Instagram, Facebook, and say, hey man, I'm going to go check out this random corner somewhere. Anyone want to come? And Tony, being the guy he is always up for adventure. And so he volunteered. And so on our trips, like over last summer, like basically from May through July and August, we would just basically go on a couple of trips a month over the weekends, and we'd have a couple hours in the car and we're just catching up and BSing and talking about stuff. And that's kind of where the whole catalyst for the survival games came up, was because I was working on my own set of bushcraft and survival skills that I was trying to learn, and also like find really unique and innovative gear for the gear bag that kind of serves multi-purpose. And Tony was on his own journey as well. And then he had another idea that he'd been working on for a long time, something called the Redneck Olympics that he was trying to put on for our buddies, kind of like a backyard barbecue where you'd sit down and like do some axe throwing, maybe teach people how to do a bow drill, stuff like that. And so after like multiple hours of going outdoors and in the car and like having these conversations and deep diving into it, that's kind of where a lot of the core concepts for the survival games came up. And that was when we decided, I think we're onto something here, and we're going to open it up to the public and see how they react. So,
yeah, Mountain Man Dan had said that it just like took off on Facebook. Like all kinds of people like they kind of got this impression, and I'm assuming it's probably because of your marketing background, Tony, but a lot of people were just thinking like it was something that a big event that had been going on for a while, right? Is that kind of how it went down?
Yeah, basically. It was like Phil said, it was supposed to be the Redneck Olympics. I was tired of my other friends like saying that they want to do it and then backing out, and that kind of went back and forth for like 2 years, and I was tired of it. And Phil and I were all excited about bushcraft and going on these adventures, and so we were like, well, why don't we just put it on Facebook? We'll invite our close friends and see if anybody actually is going to commit to doing this, but we'll also make it public. And if anybody in the Portland area wants to join us, we'll just let them join us. Thinking like that. But then at the last minute, I changed the name from the Redneck Olympics to the PNW Survival Games. And the marketing person that I am, I created a logo for it, and then put together the itinerary and made the itinerary look really cool. And I wanted, like, if I was going to get my friends to do it, it had to look fun, right? And so I just put my marketing flair on it. And then, when we put it on Facebook, it was wild to see what happened. A lot of people kept saying, like, oh my gosh, I just found out about this. Like, I wish I'd known about this years ago. And I'm like, dude, we just launched it 2 days ago. What are you talking about? Like, everybody thought that it had been something that had been around for years, and they were just the last ones to find out about it, because it looked established right from the start. Mm-hmm. So when that happened, we were like, all right, Phil, we're not going to be able to do this in the backyard. We got to find a bigger property. And so we immediately started I went around all over Oregon and looked at different private properties until we found one that looked really good. And then simultaneously, we were getting phone calls from people that had been on the shows like Naked and Afraid and Alone and Survivor. And they were calling us wanting to be on the show. And we were like, what show? This is a barbecue. So we just we're like, all right, well, maybe this could be a show. And so, like, literally everything happened within 60 days. I don't know if Dana told you that, but it was 60 days from when we posted on Facebook to when the event happened. And within that 60 days, it went from backyard barbecue to a huge production of an event, kind of like a Tough Mudder or Spartan Run, mm-hmm. something like that, mm-hmm. mixed with basically filming a pilot for a TV show. Yeah. All that happened within 60 days. And so, like, the speed in which Phil and I had to adapt and buy more gear and talk to suppliers, and because we supply all the contestants with backpacks full of all the gear that they're going to need for the whole weekend, like the speed in which everything happened, like, I loved it. Like, I live for that pressure. I live for that thrill and that excitement. Like, Phil and I did a Kickstarter campaign back in like 2014, I believe. And it was kind of an unnecessary Kickstarter. It was just a marketing strategy. We'd already raised all the money that we needed for the business. But we thought that we could engineer a viral marketing campaign, and that it was kind of like that rush again, because like that, it went super viral. It went really, really well. But it's just that mad dash of, like, no sleep, sleeping at the office, if you are going to sleep, you're going to sleep at the office, just crazy hours, putting out fires and solving problems, like doing it all in like a short period of time. It's just really thrilling and exciting, as long as there's a finish line, right? If there's no finish line, then it sucks. But mm-hmm. We knew that there was a finish line at the 60-day mark for the survival games. And so, it was an absolute blast putting this thing together.
So what's the premise? I mean, for our audience, what's the premise of the survival games then? I mean, what challenges do you do, and what do they judge? What do the judges judge, I guess?
Yeah. So to explain it to anybody that's never heard of it, the way the format works is it's a 2-day workshop / competition. And we do 7 challenges. So it's 4 challenges on day 1 and then 3 challenges on day 2. And the way the format works is it's amateurs mixed with experienced survivalists. So this year we actually had like total amateurs, but we also had like Sam Strong, who completed the full 21 days on Naked and Afraid. We also had Dana Anderson's son there, Ian, who's a lifelong survivalist. And so it's a big mix of amateurs and experienced survivalists competing. And they all get everyone sits down together, and they get a 30-minute lesson from an expert survivalist like Dana. Like he taught this year, he taught the shelter building challenge. So he teaches them for 30 minutes how to build a lean-to shelter, how to insulate the ground, how to make it waterproof, because we're in the Pacific Northwest. And then after the 30-minute lesson, then everybody just grabs their backpacks and then they run off into the woods, and they have a 60-minute challenge. And so we gave them 60 minutes to build the best shelter possible. So sometimes it's a 60-minute challenge, and sometimes it's a 60-minute build time. And then there's a challenge that happens after that where we sort of figure out who the winner is going to be. So this one for the shelter building with Dana, it was a 60-minute build time. And then after that, then we had one person from each team, because it's 2-person teams, one person from each team had to put on an orange prison jumpsuit, like they're all convicts, and then they had to get into their shelters, and then we had a local fireman pull out the fire hose and blast all the shelters, and then the water would drip through the shelters into the jumpsuit, and then they have to step out of the shelter, take off the jumpsuit, put it into a Ziploc bag, and then we weighed all the jumpsuits to see which ones had absorbed the most water.
Okay.
And then whichever jumpsuit was the lightest, obviously had the least amount of water in it, and that's how we determined who won first, second, and third.
Okay.
So again, 30-minute challenge, or 30-minute lesson, 60-minute challenge. And then the way we sort of prove who wins, Phil and I just like to throw our marketing flair and theatrics at it, to make it really entertaining, not only for the contestants and everybody involved. It's really entertaining to watch that, but also potentially for the viewers at home. We're well aware that this could become a TV show, and so we're trying to test certain things to see how they look on camera.
Right. And yeah, just before we got started, you had sent me a link for a little bit of a sneak peek, and I watched it. It's really great. Anybody who's listening should go and check out PNW Survival Games on Instagram, and I think it's the most recent video that you guys posted, right? Or is it?
Yeah, I pinned it to the top.
Yeah. So check that out. It's really cool. The gentleman, you'll have to, let me see. I'm trying to see if I can find it. Rio. That cut it, did a great job. And so what can the audience and what can your fans look forward to seeing in the near future, as far as how that film's going to be laid out, and where would they be able to see it?
Yeah, so we didn't film it as like an actual reality show episode. It was to do that, for anyone that doesn't have experience working with reality shows, for every single person that you see on TV, there's probably between 3 and 5 people behind them. So you have 2 camera operators, somebody doing audio, a producer, and then maybe an assistant. Yeah. We were not set up for that. This time we had, I think, maybe 6 camera operators, and then a whole bunch of lav mics on the judges and 6 of the contestants. And then we also put GoPros on them, and then body cams. So there's quite a bit of content. So over the next couple of months, about 1 per week, you'll see different recap videos. Pretty soon you'll start to see, maybe starting next week, you'll start to see like 60-second videos. That's like a recap of a single challenge. So you'll see 6 of those different challenges coming up. So you can see sort of what we did. And then we're going to be taking all that content though, and not only using it for marketing and, just content for social media, but we're really going to be cutting that together. So when we go meet with Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Discovery, those are our top 3 right now, that they can really understand like what it is that we're actually creating here.
Yeah.
So not a full episode.
Okay.
We're still in the pre-production phases for the reality show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the next thing that you guys are doing is going to be it's a 10-day challenge, right? That you're currently casting for.
So we're taking applications for the 10-day competition. That's what the reality show series is basically going to be. It's going to be an expanded format of the 2-day challenge. But in the 10-day format, each day is going to be a specific skill set. So on day 1, you're going to do shelter, and there are going to be 3 challenges on that day, and that'll be 1 episode. And the person with the lowest score at the end ends up getting eliminated. And so it kind of progresses from there until the very end, where we have the culmination episode, where it's basically a self-rescue kind of situation where they have to utilize all the information and skills that they've learned over that 10 days and then self-extract themselves across the finish line, basically.
Yeah. And one thing I want to point out is that we are being a little biased and pushing a concept, which is that, survival experience is obviously super important and everyone should have it, but it is not the end all be all. And if you have somebody that is present and they're a quick learner and they're crafty and creative, they can kick ass and do just as well as somebody that's experienced. And we just saw that again. We saw that last year, and we saw that again last weekend, where the team that took second place, like Tara, she had no survival experience. No, that was third place. She had no survival experience, and she's breast cancer. breast cancer survivor. Yeah, and Joel had zero, literally didn't even own a tent, and he's like in his 60s.
I was talking to Joel. His wife bought him a spot at the survival games as a wedding anniversary present. He had never camped in his life. He literally bought all his camping stuff on Amazon 2 weeks before the games came. Got paired up at random with a guy who was a former military guy, but they just synced really well, and they took second place.
Yeah,
Goodness.
beating out Sam Strong from Naked and Afraid.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of our point, is that like we're trying to promote the idea of like people that are sitting at home watching these shows thinking I could never do that. We want to remind them, yes, you can. You probably can. As long as you're crafty and you're paying attention and you can learn quick, like you can do well in this situation. This is not a survival endurance challenge, like Alone or Naked and Afraid, where you're starving to death for weeks. This is 30-minute lessons, 60-minute challenge. You can definitely do it. And I also want to bring up another point, actually, is that 60-minute element is not meant to be cute or quirky. That's a real situation that nobody talks about. When somebody's out hiking, and actually this just happened on Sunday night to my sister's boyfriend. People go out, they go hiking, and they just think it's going to be a 30-minute hike or maybe a couple hour hike, right? And then they get lost. And then what happens is they don't realize that they're lost and they won't admit it. They're in denial. Mm-hmm. And so they just keep thinking like, oh, my car's around the corner. Oh, it's around that tree. Oh, it's over that hill. And they just keep doing that all day long. And they really don't do anything to help their situation until they realize the sun is about to set. They got about 60 minutes before the sun sets, and they have to go into action now if they want to survive the night. That's really how survival ends up happening in real survival situations. You're in denial, and then it's not till the last minute where the sun sets that you're like, crap, I'm not going to make it out of here. I got to do something. And that's really the scenario that we're trying to encapsulate with our challenges. So you get a 30-minute lesson, then you have 60 minutes, and you have all that pressure on you from, competing against your fellow competitors, but also the clock. And that high pressure is really going to mimic a real world situation when you're in a real emergency and you have 60 minutes before the sun sets.
Well, yeah, I love the concept. I love the concept of what you're doing as far as like getting people who maybe aren't as experienced, and then it's a teaching process, right? And so like it makes me think of, Rick and I we're both avid bow hunters, right? And this isn't to discredit any of the survival experts that are out there, right? But I thought that was an interesting concept that was mentioned on your website, is that Rick and I can practice shooting our bows at 100 yards all day long, and we can smack a balloon all day long. But you put yourself in that situation where there's an elk in front of you, it's a different ball game. And so actually having that real world experience is a big deal. It's a big difference. And so I love the idea that it's kind of an even playing field, and even when I was looking at some of the parameters for the 10-day, you're looking for, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 3 different groups of individuals, and 2 of the groups might have some experience, but mostly you're looking for creatives. And then the second group is analytical people, engineer type people. And then the third group is survival experts. And I think that's a really cool concept, because for me, like you guys had probably heard in the episode we did with Dana, is I'm a big fan of Alone, just all survival shows in general. My wife loves Survivor. She's been a huge fan since the beginning. And so we always watch the shows and everything. And I'm always like, man, I would love to be on that Alone show, but I just don't think I don't know if I could do it, or I don't think I got what it takes, that kind of stuff. I just don't have a lot of time to get out and do stuff. I've more recently started getting into doing bushcrafting in the boundary waters of Minnesota. But like, this is something I think that I could legitimately do. And so Rick and I like to do challenges and things like that. And so in that last episode, I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna sign up. I'm gonna put in for the casting call and see if I can't get in, because I think that would be
you touched on a lot of things that we had some of those long drive conversations about, where we were sitting in the car going, do you think you could do Alone or Naked and Afraid? Would you do it? And also having some of the conversation about a lot of the participants that are on these shows. I have nothing but respect for them. But one of the realities of the situation is a lot of these people were raised in that environment. and in that lifestyle, or it was part of their training or their job. You kind of see a lot of that. And so for regular guys like Tony and myself who are living in the suburbs, who have a passion for the outdoors, but we're not in it every single day. We were looking for an opportunity for people to come and learn some of these life-saving skills in a fun and competitive environment, where I hate to use the word entry level, but it allows people to get out of their comfort zone and experience some of these things. Because one of the things that we discussed as well was that when you go camping and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to try out these bushcraft skills, generally the last thing you want to do is make yourself more uncomfortable than you have to be. You could sit there and try and do a bow drill fire, or you could just fall back on what's easy, get some newspaper and a lighter and just get the fire going. And so that's one of the things that we also realize is this provides people an environment to really invest in learning some of these skills as well.
Yeah. And actually, Phil used a key word there. So we are mostly, not entirely, but mostly focusing on emergency survival situations. And a lot of these shows, it's all about the lifestyle, about primitive living, primitive living and primitive bushcraft and things like that, or hunting and camping. Like those are all the concepts that everyone's thinking about. There's not really anything out there that's focusing on like real world emergency situations. And actually, I have to tell the story because it just happened on Sunday. So my sister's boyfriend is from LA. He just moved up here, and he went out hiking near Multnomah Falls. It's a really beautiful area. And I think he went out around like 5 o'clock. The sun doesn't set here till like 8:45 right now. And anyways, he took a wrong trail, and it was supposed to be like a 2 mile loop or something like that. And he ended up like 6 miles, like way deep into the forest. And up here, 6 miles in this forest, that's a long ways. And anyways, we didn't get the emergency phone call until I think like 10 p.m. And then we had the sheriffs out there and search and rescue out there. I think they had like 8 search and rescue people out there looking for him, and they didn't find him until 1 a.m. And he was just in a tank top and shorts. And the ironic thing is he was at the survival games as a spectator, but he was volunteering and wasn't paying attention to the lessons, obviously. But I mean, it literally can happen to anybody, these emergency situations. It's not camping. And that's, right. I think that's a thing for thick-skulled people to understand, is that they're like, well, I would do this in that situation, or I would have my axe with me in that situation. It's like, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you innocently went hiking. You innocently went for a stroll. You took a wrong turn and you got lost. And now you're in a real like life and death emergency situation. How are you going to deal with it now, in that situation? Not prepped, not camping, yeah, it's just different.
Yeah.
Like my wife, when I first started taking her out into the woods hiking and stuff too, it's amazing to me that people don't look up in the sky and see that weather could be coming in. It may be in the distance, but those clouds are starting to build. We might need to turn around. And then I like what you're doing there by saying, this is a little hike. You might have a day pack on with a few essentials, maybe a jacket or something, but they didn't plan on getting into the mess they might be going to be getting in. And you're teaching them the survival skills for that day. It's, you were talking about naked and afraid and alone. I think I could be probably on alone, but I'm not going to get naked and be out in the woods. That's just not me. It's just
me neither.
I don't want anything crawling where I don't want it to be crawling.
Yeah, I'm not a big bug guy.
but I like what you're doing, and it's funny because when we were going to talk to Mountain Man Dan, Ricky was talking about your games and how he wanted to get into them, and I'm cheering him on and saying you should try, because you know what, if you don't try, you don't get in. So that's pretty cool. Ricky's is very excited about that. I'd like to go just watch and learn myself, but I love what you're doing there, and I love are you going to, is it just going to be in the Pacific Northwest, or are you going to have any other, like, it, where you live in that northwest part of America? I mean, I can see the wet and the it's a different than going to Arizona, we'll just say. in a different climate. So, is there any thoughts of expanding, or just going to stay in the Pacific Northwest?
I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek that has not been published and no one has seen yet, but I'm just going to go ahead and show you. We already have the future planned out as far as survival games Pacific, Badlands, Australia, Amazon, South, even urban. So we are currently, this is last year was an accident, right? This was
Yep.
the first real one.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're talking to the networks. We're also talking to Boy Scouts of America right now. There's a chance that we might team up with them and let them license our brands and do this all over the country. We're also going to be reaching out to the founders of Tough Mudder and see if they want to team up and do this all over the country as well. And then as far as the show goes, for the reality show, I would imagine the first couple of seasons, yes, would be in the Pacific Northwest. It is iconic up here. But we do have every intention of expanding to other regions around the country and then also around the world as well. Simply because what we're creating it applies to all humans in all these different environments, including the urban setting. We're not going to dive too much into that, but we're really excited about that concept as well.
Yeah. Over the last year, we've had the opportunity to have conversations with a lot of really amazing survivalists from a variety of these different shows. And we've gotten nothing but a positive response from every single person. Everyone's really excited about what we're trying to do here. And so that opens up a lot of doors for us to bring this into different regions of the US because it's in a lot of people's backyards. It might not be our area, but they already know it and they have a good idea and good handle on what the situation is down there. So that gives us an automatic in for setting up future expanded projects in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely seems like we accidentally tapped into something that everybody wanted. Actually, specifically what everyone's telling us is that everyone in the survival community and bushcraft community, they basically been saying like everybody's been wanting a skills focused show where the audience at home actually learns something, and that there's been a void there, and so we accidentally tapped into that, and so we're just running with it now.
Yeah, and I'm super excited about that because so when Survivor first came out, I think the first season I was 18. And I was like, ooh, I'm gonna get on that show. And you had to be 21, and I was super bummed out about that. But then I watched the first season, and I thought, well, this isn't about survival. You know what I mean? And yes, it is. I still love the show, and I think everything's great, but it's not what I was expecting it to be. There's so much more of a mental game involved in that, and so you don't learn about all that much about survival skills with that show. Alone is different in that respect. You do learn some of those things. But I like how now this is really central to learning new skills, ways to pivot, right? Like adapting when you need to. You could have all the skills in the world, but how do you adapt in an emergency type situation? And then, we did a little over 40-mile hike, 7 different peaks in 24 hours, me and Rick and another guy. It was because we just like to do these challenges. We like to challenge ourselves. And so this is part of, we're kind of talking about what's going to be the new challenge. And then this came around, I was cruising through Wild Mountain Man Dan's page, and I saw the post that you guys put up where you collaborated with him. And then, so when I was talking to him on the phone outside of the episode, he talked a lot about it. He was like, this is going to be great. It's going to be this new big thing. And I think that you guys have hit kind of a gold mine here because I feel like there's more people in the world now that want to understand some of the older ways, some of the primitive ways of living. I think there's some of it's probably fear-based. There's probably some people that are nervous about the state of the world and how that's going to go. And so I think you guys hit it right at the right time. And I really, without a doubt, think that this could really blow up, especially if you do make those connections with Tough Mudder and some of these other organizations. And then it looks like you guys have already got a lot of connections the way it is, plus all these people in the survival community and in the wildlife living community. I think it's amazing. And because I think, is it teams of 2 for the 10-day challenge?
It's teams of 2 for the 2-day and the 10-day challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, so I talked to Rick and I gave him the right of first refusal. I was like, I feel like you got to be my partner, you know?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, yeah, you know, he's like, he goes, well, I would do the Amazing Race with you though.
This is only 2 days, man.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that. I like to talk to people, and in those places I'd get distracted because just watching, and I learn a lot. Because when you said the urban one, I would probably need the urban one more than anyone in anything, because if I don't, I just I like people, but there's a time I like to get away from them, and being in an urban setting drives me nuts. Like I'm more the Steve McQueen type, and I'd rather wake up in the middle of nowhere than any place, any city on earth, kind of person. And to survive in the city, that'd be interesting for me,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
truly don't. I don't. I would like to learn about more city life. I've never been. I mean, I go and I leave.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
when we talk about urban survival games, I want you to think like, what would you do in a zombie apocalypse? Or if society
yeah,
just fell apart all of a
Like an
sudden, right?
EMP, or I mean, on the West Coast, we've got to deal with the potential of a tsunami or an earthquake at any given moment.
Or
Mhm.
super
yeah.
volcano.
Because well,
Yeah.
and that's where I'm going with that, because I've always grown up in this. I should probably say sparsely populated area, so I've never really worried about that, because I figured I could. I've learned enough throughout my life in certain situations that I could survive out here. But you get in the city, then everybody's fighting to live and fighting for whatever in the zombie apocalypse or whatever else that might happen. And I think you guys are doing really cool things. It's amazing to me.
Yeah, to kind of
And
circle back on what Ricky was talking about with a couple of different styles of reality show that's currently out there for survival techniques or bushcraft stuff like that. Speaking to kind of what we're looking for our 10-day casting call. After we did that first challenge, or we did the first 2-day games last year, we were really concerned about like some seasoned outdoors people coming in and really wiping the table with us with it, and we found that that wasn't the case at all. The team that won first place last year, one was a former scout guy, and the other one, I think he was a coder, a computer programmer, and they got paired up at random, and they just communicated really well. They were able to take instruction and innovate in the moment, and they ended up running away with the whole thing and winning first place. And so that's where we kind of tuned in to this concept of the left brain, right brain idea, where that's something that we want to kind of highlight on the show as well, so that we can give people options, and then we see what they choose, and then based on those decisions, we see which style comes out on top. And so that kind of helps guide people in the future as well, to say, okay, that's how they approach this. This is how they approach that. But this is the one that really worked the best.
Mm.
it kind of sounds like communicators are winning this thing. The communicators between the two that can communicate very well with each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Do you guys were you guys fans of the show Mythbusters?
Absolutely. Yep.
So do you remember how when they would do their experiments, they would do these these kind of cartoon illustrations, and they would really break it down of like how the science works, how the experiment's going to work. They would really educate you, and that's definitely going to be a component of what we're trying to do here, is so that the audience at home can truly learn some stuff and then go apply it. Obviously, that's part of the lesson, but we don't want to just like preview the lesson on TV. We want to actually just go into an educational bit, maybe where we explain the 30-minute lesson in like 120 seconds or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. I saw that post you put up where you met is Adam Savage in the
in the airport.
Yeah.
That was just ironic. Yeah. Cause a couple months later, we ended up signing, we've already signed, Tori Bellisi, or at least letter of intent. So Tori Bellisi from Mythbusters, he's going to be one of our 3 judges on the reality show.
Oh, that's cool.
We didn't want the third judge. The first 2 judges are, badass survivalists, but we wanted the third judge to be more relatable to our target audience, which is Joe Schmo, who might be clever and crafty, but doesn't have a lot of survival experience. But also having him on board, he also did like the explosion show and the White Rabbit project. So it allows us to like go a little crazy and have a little fun with some of the things.
Yeah, there are only so many ways that you can start a fire, and we like to think outside the box on like how you utilize that element or that skill to do something else in the competition phase of things. So that's where Tori is going to be really invaluable, where he can kind of help us think outside the box on some of those things.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. So for all of our listeners, Rick wants to be able to mingle with people and he wants to be a spectator. So I'm going to be looking for a partner. So if there's anybody out there that's interested in doing this 10-day challenge, you let me know. Be happy to. I don't know. It'd just be fun. I just want to learn, just like Rick. You know what I mean? I have no aspirations of, I would like to manifest winning. But I just want to. Even just rubbing shoulders with some of the people that are going to be there, just like-minded individuals too, it just is super intriguing to me. And I just love that community of people. They're all just so supportive and just absolutely amazing.
It's been amazing seeing 2 years kind of come through, because the first year, okay, we reached out to a lot of our friends. It was some of our local community. We were curious if that was just our group of people. This year, it was a completely different group of people. No one was the same that competed. And we were like, all right, can we recreate the magic? And it turned out beautifully. We had some of the best survivalists in the industry come out. They're super gracious people. They're open to questions from everyone. Just really, really beautiful people. And then every person that was there in the competition, you're not seeing backbiting. You're not seeing infighting. You're seeing everyone being super supportive of everyone else, and they want to see you succeed in completing these challenges, even though you are still in competition. So, I mean, there was one of the highlights for me was the very last challenge was the raft building challenge. Every team had finished except for one. And so instead of wandering off, all the teams lined up at the finish line and waited for that last team and cheered them on until they crossed the finish line. And that was a really great moment to see that camaraderie, and people are like just really having a great time getting to know each other and making friendships. And yeah, it's a really beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, that's cool. That, that just made me think of, it made me think of that show that's up on Netflix right now, Outlast, and that's another show where I was just kind of like, man, I don't think I could. It's almost cringy, the things that they have to do
we're the opposite of that show
to win, and I'm just like, I couldn't do that. I couldn't be that guy. You know what I mean? Like, and I just don't. To me, I don't understand how anybody would want to be associated with that, unless of course they're, maybe that's just the way that they are in real life, right? But even if you're not, in order to win that challenge, I think you have to do things way outside of your comfort zone in order to win, and that's just not appealing.
Yeah, these challenges are competitive enough where, I mean, people are moving and they are sweating their asses off. This is not a walk in the park, and the challenges speak for themselves. We don't need to manufacture drama. Let's just say that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, exactly. Like,
you don't have a bottle of whiskey there. So, you start getting, I think they did that in MTV House Days or whatever. They said that's
right.
what they tried to do.
Oh, man.
So, no, and because this is truly something that it helps people in the long run too. You know what I mean? How many people do you think you'll affect, even if you take Joe Schmo off the street and they learn a little bit because they're watching the show, or whatever, that they can maybe survive something. I mean, that's what I like about this. I mean, it's Don't Die Rusty for us. It's Don't Die Rusty because they are learning something. They are taking it and using it, and you are affecting people. And that's where we go with this is you guys, it's more than a show, or it's more than a weekend. It's something that people will take away, learn something, and then they say, hey, because of you guys, I either saved a life or maybe they saved their own lives. And that's the cool thing about this.
Yeah, I think we've had one or two people say that in the last week or two, they've actually been in scenarios where their time at the Pacific Northwest Survival Games is actually come in handy.
Yeah, I don't know if he wants to talk about this. I hope he doesn't get mad at me. But one of our instructors that you've interviewed, 2 days after the games, he was failing a tree for one of the contestants actually, and the tree snapped and fell on him and scalped him and knocked him unconscious. And so Dana ended up with like I don't know, just tons of stitches and staples in the top of his head. And the contestants that he had been helping, messaged us and said that they were thankful that they had participated in the survival games because challenge number 5 was the first aid challenge, where we taught people how to deal with how to stop the bleed, how to close a laceration, how to brace a leg if it's broken, and then how to build a stretcher and drag that person to safety. And I guess a couple of the skills that they learned at the games, they applied during that emergency 2 days after the games on Dana.
Wow.
So wild.
See, that's amazing right there. I mean,
yeah, we got to give a big shout out to Dr. Natalie Bonthus from Survival Med. She's going to be partnering with us for the reality show and for challenges moving forward to help give like real life context and scenario kind of situations to some of the different skill sets and stuff. And she was really great at the survival games this year as well. Very supportive. Very happy to have this.
Yeah, that was Phil's fine. I had no idea who she was, and to be honest, I wasn't really engaging when he was talking about like we need to have like a first aid challenge, and I'm like that's going to be so boring on camera. Like I can't imagine how that's going to look cool. And then but Phil was adamant; he would not back down. He goes, "We have to do it. Like we have to teach people this stuff." And so little by little, we found like really clever, creative ways to do a challenge that was going to be like thrilling and exciting, and it ended up being like my favorite challenge. I think when you see it on camera, you're going to be blown away at like just how badass and awesome it is. And it was my least favorite to start with.
I go, Tony, we can do all the sexy stuff like making fire and traps and stuff, but none of that matters if you're dead.
Those were the words that you needed to say right there.
Yep.
That's awesome. So as far as the casting call for the 10-day challenge, is there a deadline, or is there do you guys have anything set in stone right now, or is it just still kind of open?
It's still just kind of open. We're just going to sort of play it by ear. So after we did the survival games last year, we spent like basically the next like 6 or 7 months exclusively working on the show element, meeting with different celebrities and networks and producers, and just trying to see what we can make of it. And like Phil said earlier, the weird thing is that nobody's saying no to us. It's the weirdest thing. It's like we're just pushing forward until somebody says no, and as long as everyone just keeps saying yes, we're just going to keep pushing forward. So that's all we did. And we did not work on these survival games that just happened last weekend. We didn't even touch it or work on it at all until 2 months before. So it's kind of back to like a 60-day challenge for us again to put it together. So all of our attention's been on that. And now that it's over and we're sort of like breathing and recovering a little bit, now we're going to turn our focus back onto the show again. So we'll have some more information on deadlines and expectations probably over the next couple of months. But I would say give us to the end of the year, though, before we iron out a lot of the details.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, so I see like on the registration page, you have an opportunity to say, if you have are you hoping to compete with a partner, and who is that? What's their name? That kind of stuff. And then it goes on to the next page. So I'm assuming at some point you'll be able to, provide some sort of like a casting video, or how that's going to work?
So the way that the casting call intake form is set up is, we want to know if people have a partner that they want to compete with. And then at the end of the form, there's an area where you can submit headshots, and then also a brief 2-minute video of just talking into your iPhone, just doing a basic description about yourself, giving a little bit of background, just so we can have something on file to reach out to you about.
Okay.
And then we are just compiling all that information right now. There are people who were in the 2-day games who expressed interest, so we're adding their names to the pile as well. And that's all going to go into a database. And then once we have more concrete information about the production of the reality show series and the casting finalization process for that, then we're going to start sending out information once we get the information on how that process is going to move forward.
Cool.
Yeah, but we've already cherry picked a couple of people that were in the games last year, and then we definitely cherry picked some people that were in the games this year. And then we're just going to be, I think we probably have like 6 teams that we really, really like right now. So we're looking for at least 6 more. But, yeah, I mean, we're if we have to review 5,000 applications, we'll review them all. And so we're not gonna close the door. We want to leave it open and just see what comes to the door, and then we'll make our choices from there.
Great. That's awesome. Anything else you guys want to talk about with the Pacific Northwest Survival Games before we switch gears a little bit?
We can talk about Georgia Bushcraft.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah, Georgia Bushcraft, we didn't even know about, or at least I didn't know about them until recently. And they're an amazing organization. And so, yeah, we've been talking to them about this year in the fall, doing a micro survival games, maybe only like 4 to 6 hours long, just do a few challenges, just to sort of, just dip our toe in the water with that. And then next year actually do like a big version with them. It's kind of a little bit last minute right now to be doing that. So that's why we're just going to do like a little micro version. And they're also just really well connected too. I'm excited to be, actually, this is a big thing. I'm just excited to be part of this network. Like Phil and I are just huge fans of all these people and all these companies like Grim Cards and Wazoo and Sawyer. Like there's so many cool companies. There's so many amazing people. And Phil and I are just really excited that we tapped into this, but also that we actually have something useful for them. Like I'm just stoked that I can bring value to this community. That's kind of what I keep telling Dana and Biko and Peter and everybody is that like, I'm just stoked that I can add value. Like clearly, a lot of these guys can use some help with marketing and branding strategies and how to build up their own brand. Cause once they're off the show, they're kind of a lot of them are just back to working their normal jobs.
Right.
And sometimes it's just backbreaking stuff. And you're like, really? Like that person is basically a celebrity. Like you're like my hero and they're, pouring concrete. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's not what they want to be doing full time.
Yeah.
And so I know Phil and I are both really stoked about like the opportunity of teaching them a lot of the marketing and branding skills that we've utilized over the years to build up different businesses and teach them all of those things so they can build up their own profiles. And that would be our contribution to this community because we're not survival experts, obviously, but at least we bring something to the table.
For sure. And to your point, I know what you mean because I know, and I think I can speak for Rick when I say this too, is that we're honored and also humbled in having the ability to be sitting here speaking with you guys, just even, speaking with Wild Mountain Man Dan, and then just who's to say where the networking goes from there, the people that we talk to. I mean, the 6-year-old gentleman you said that competed in the games that his wife bought for him. I mean, we might need to have him on the show. I mean, that guy is obviously not dying rusty, you know what I mean? So, so it's really cool. This is just awesome. I'm super honored to be having this conversation with you guys. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
By the way, I do want to plant a seed to your audience and maybe your audience can help spread the word, but, I don't know what this is going to sound like. So if this is an unfamiliar concept to people, I'm sorry, but it's normal. I'm loving this journey and I definitely want to stay on it and I want to contribute to it, but I don't want to, like all my previous businesses, I don't want to operate it forever. I do have every intention of selling this brand and this business. So I want to build it up and make it into something awesome. And then I want somebody else, either an investor or a network or somebody else to come in and just buy it. And then we'll stay on as like producers and help with the creative side of it. But this is a built to sell company and a built to sell brand. And we're going to make sure that whoever we sell it to though, is going to, do it justice.
All right. You hear that, Rick? We got maybe a year or two here to build up enough capital to buy it.
Yeah. To give you a little context, At this year's survival games, over the 3 days of production, I walked 41 miles as
Wow.
the main head of logistics and operations. So
Yep.
my body can only take so much.
It's a lot of work for two dudes that work
Yeah.
full-time jobs outside of this, and I'm in a different city
Yeah.
every week. Like, I am busy.
Yeah.
This is a huge project, so like we need other people to come in and help us, and then ultimately buy it someday.
Yeah, and Rick, I don't know how much of a glutton for punishment Sean DeGray is, but maybe he might have some interest in it. I don't know.
Yeah.
He owns the Total Archery Challenge, and that's a traveling archery shoot. Yeah.
Nice.
By the way, I was thinking about something the other day. I'm just going to kind of think out loud right now because I can't stop thinking about it. But, there's people that have been on Naked and Afraid and been on Alone and been on Survivor all over the country. In every little pocket of forest around the country, these people are everywhere. And so one thing I can't stop thinking about is like, what if we expanded to basically like at least every state? But then we could take like Peter and Biko and maybe Dana on tour, like a band, and then we'll just pick up like 2 or 3 survivalists, like well-known survivalists in each city that we go to, and sort of, I guess it'd be kind of like it's either like a tour or like a licensing deal where we can like just allow these people that have been on the shows, that have experience, that have a profile, but don't have an organization, don't have a format. We could basically just allow them to do these things all over the country and help educate lots and lots of people on emergency survival skills. It could be an opportunity for all of them to, leverage what we've built.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great platform, and I love what you're doing to kind of just bring this community of people out more into view, I guess. So yeah, well, cool. I think so. Just gonna pivot slightly. Just have a couple more questions here, and Tony, I was when I was kind of scrolling through your Instagram page, I came across this really cool photo that you posted up, and it's an elk, like a Euro elk head that I think you found it out in the wilderness, but it's hanging above the tub in your bathroom, I believe. And so first off, that was just really cool. I'm like, that looks awesome. I want one of those above my tub in my house, So I clicked on the picture, and then of course, I read your caption, and in the caption you talk about, there's another photo of Johnny Cash, and you talk about his journey of sobriety. And so then as I scrolled further, I saw that you've been on your own journey of sobriety, and I wonder if you would mind talking about that just a little bit. Since Rick and I started Don't Die Rusty, we've run into and through our experiences and through a lot of the people that we've talked to, we've come across a lot of people that are on their own journey of sobriety. And so Rick and I did a challenge in May, and we did we called it NA May, and so we did that. And then last year, me and my wife did 60 days, and Rick doesn't really, Rick dabbles, but I've identified it in my past as a problem. And so since I've done my little stints of sobriety, I've laid off of it, but I still have a beverage here and there. But I'm just curious, for our listeners, talk a little bit about that journey and how long it's been, and kind of what flipped the switch, what was going on in your life where you were just like, enough's enough.
Yeah. Well, first off, if anybody's watching this, here's the photo that he's talking about. The elk head above my bathtub. I think I have one of the most masculine bathtubs out there, and I don't take baths, so I just decorated it instead. I've lived here for 6 years. I've never taken a bath in that thing. But yeah, no. So I always drank. Like, I didn't drink in high school at all. But then obviously, like, being a fashion designer and being, a city person, alcohol is just around constantly. And then I invented something called the whiskey element, which allows you to transform your cheap bottle of whiskey into a top shelf whiskey in 24 hours. And that was one of the companies that Phil and I did together. And I think that was sort of like what sort of got me a little too comfortable with drinking all the time. It's like, it's for my job, I got to make sure the product is working. And so I was already kind of drinking a little too much for years. And then in and then I got married. I was married for 18 months. And then but it was a mistake. Like I knew I shouldn't have married this girl, but it was like, we'd gotten back together like 6 times. And then finally I felt all the pressure from her family and my family. And I was just like, screw it. Let's just get married. And this time I'm just not going to break up with her, because I always did the breaking up. And then this time she did it while we were married. And so anyway, she ended up leaving for New Year's. Like she was going to go to LA, and like that was going to be the end of it. And she was leaving at the end of 2019, going into 2020. So basically, like the first day of 2020, January 1st, she's gone, and I just immediately start going into like a deep depression and spiraling and drinking way too much. So 2020 was pretty rough for me. And but luckily, they were saying like stay inside and don't be around people, because of COVID. And I was like, great, perfect. I'm just going to get drunk every day by myself, and no one's going to know about it.
Yeah.
And but I was still lecturing. I do a lot of lectures around the country on marketing and branding strategies. And so the audience could definitely tell that I was just like getting fatter and fatter. So I basically gained 45 pounds between January 1st, 2020 to July of 22. So in a 2.5 year period, I gained 45 pounds, and I was drinking more than a fifth a day of Jack Daniels and Fireball, lots of sugar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, I was teaching a marketing course. It's called the Master Marketing Academy, and I do it 4 times a year here in Oregon. And one of my students walked in, and she was like 28 or 29, but just like vibrant and full of life, and like excited about life. And I was just depressed and drunk all the time. And when I saw that, it just snapped something in me. I'm like, I used to be like that. Like I used to be vibrant and excited and eager for life. I'm like, I want that back. And so when I saw that, it clicked in my head that like, if I want to date this girl, I am in no condition physically or mentally or lifestyle to be in a relationship. I just can't. Like, it's not possible. And so I knew I had to make some changes if I wanted to date not only her, but anybody. And so I put together a plan. Obviously I'm a strategist. And so that happened, I think, in April. And then it wasn't until July that I put the plan into motion. So I rented an Airbnb in California away from all my friends and family. I didn't want to see anybody for a month. So I rented Airbnb for a month, got a gym membership. I planned out every single minute of every single day, from like what I was going to do when I wake up in the morning, when I was going to go to the gym, how I was going to work remotely, what I was going to do during my lunch breaks, after work, go back to the gym, come back, start cooking. And I also leveraged microdosing, keyword microdosing, mushrooms, psilocybin. And so I had these chocolates, and I knew like just the right amount of mushroom chocolate to take. And then it would feel a little bit like taking like maybe having like 2 or 3 cocktails, like just to take the edge off. But there's something about psilocybin that anxiety where you feel like I have to drink because of that impulse that you have. If you have that impulse like I had, it just goes away. Like as soon as you take the mushrooms, like within 45 minutes, that feeling is just gone. And then anyway, so I would come home from the gym, cook, take my mushrooms, watch a movie specifically. I chose movies because movies have closure at the end, whereas a TV show, there's always another episode. And I know one of my problems is staying up late. And so I was like, I have to be in bed by 10 o'clock if I want to kick alcohol and develop these new healthy habits. And so went to bed every night at 9:30 or 10 o'clock, woke up at 6 a.m. every day, and did that for 30 days by myself. No support, didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want somebody, like a loved one, saying like, how you doing? Like, you haven't had a drink in 2 weeks. Are you okay? Are you going through withdrawals? Like, don't talk about it. Let's pretend like it doesn't exist for a month, and let's have these new healthy habits, have a lot of fun. And it worked. I developed new healthy habits and haven't had a drop since then. And I also, one of the rules that I follow that I'm really strict about is no special occasions. Obviously I can't trust myself with alcohol. So I don't care if I'm on vacation or it's New Year's or it's your birthday or my birthday, I'm not going to have a drink. If I want to take the edge off, I'll, microdose mushrooms or have a CBD gummy. But yeah, zero special occasions, because you can't trust yourself to monitor when it's okay and when it's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to do it once and then you're going to be like, well, I'm really stressed out. This is also a special occasion. And then there's also this other event. You make all these excuses and then you're back into the old habit again. So, yeah, no, I feel amazing now. I'm so glad that I kicked that habit, and I'm physically and mentally capable of building the Pacific Northwest Survival Games and lecturing with confidence now and teaching with confidence now. Yeah, it's been a very, very life-changing decision. Did I answer your question? Sorry, I went on a rant there.
No, you did. No,
that's good.
That's perfect. And it's funny. There's a new podcast out, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with the TV show Cheers from back in the day. This Cheers it's a recurring theme here on our podcast now all of a sudden. But, Ted Danson and Woody Harrelson, they have this new podcast out, and it's called Where Everybody Knows Your Name, with Ted Danson and Woody Harrelson sometimes. But they just did a episode with Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and just an amazing, he's 60 years old. He's been sober for 30 years. And one thing that he talked about, like the thing that kind of flipped the switch for him, is, his daughter, and he just needed to be there for her. And so he was like, yeah, it's one thing I'll be with my daughter for a week and then I can go off and tour and whatever and booze and do all kinds of stuff. But he was like, I got to a point where I felt like I needed to be present for my daughter. Didn't matter where I was in the world. I needed to be able to pick up the phone and be sober for her all the time, Yeah. And so, anyway, it kind of made me think of that. And then just like you were saying with, no special occasion, no holidays and stuff like that too. And I'm the same way. It's easy for me to just have one, and then it's like, oh, okay, it's okay. Then the next day maybe one, and then pretty soon it's like 2-3 a day. Like I don't get drunk, but it's just, again, you have 2 to 3 beers a day, and that adds up over, several days. And then it just bogs you down, and I lose motivation and all that kind of stuff. So, me and my wife have made a commitment to get back on that, to get away here after the summer. But yeah, thank you for sharing that story and that vulnerability, because, I know it's probably not easy to talk about, with your previous relationship and all that kind of stuff. But, I think that those stories can really help a lot of people. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are concerned. Maybe one of their concerns is that people are going to make fun of them or be like, what, you don't drink? What the heck is that? Like, you don't like to have fun? Stuff like that. But we're seeing more and more people. It's becoming more of a trend. And even you go to restaurants and bars and things like that, and you're seeing a lot more NA options and things. So I just like to let people know and make people aware of the fact that, that it's like the cool thing to do now. Right. So,
yeah.
And it's good for you.
Yeah.
So, and nothing against anybody who likes to drink, it's just,
of course not. No.
Yeah.
But I do want to mention something. So when I was sort of spiraling and just drinking too much all the time, something happened that I didn't notice until 9 months after I quit drinking. I didn't realize all the things that alcohol had taken away from me and stolen from me. I was in this like period where I thought that like all my best inventions, all my best businesses and projects are behind me now. And I was just depressed all the time, but also just completely unmotivated. Like I was just ready for the plane to crash, any week and just end my life and just be done with it. And it was the strangest thing. Like, I got sober because I wanted to be capable of being in a healthy relationship. But then about 9 months after I quit drinking, something came back aggressively, and it happened in like a 5-day period. I felt it. It was weird. It was like a battery ramping up or something. But my hustle and my motivation and my creativity and my ambition all came back in a 5-day period. It just ramped up, and I'm like, I didn't even realize that was missing this whole time. I thought that phase of my life was over. And it wasn't. It was just like I had done so much damage to my body and my brain with all that alcohol that I had lost all of that. And then when it came back, it was just a remarkable discovery. Because you may not, you might be in a place right now where you're struggling with alcohol and you don't realize that you don't realize everything it has taken away from you already.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and when you quit drinking, it doesn't necessarily come back in 2 weeks or a month. You know, it took me 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't looking for it. Like I wasn't anticipating that feeling and that hustle and that ambition to come back. But it did 9 months later. So, yeah, basically my point is alcohol is probably, if you have a problem with alcohol, it's probably taking more from you than you even realize. You know, you're thinking it's taking away a couple of days here and there because of those hangovers, but it's taking more from you than you think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, good for you, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Everybody I talked to about sobriety just said what you said, Tony, is like they realized that there was more than the days that were taken away from them. It was they see a different part of life. There's more excitement. That, like, I'm big on sunrises. I'm big on seeing the next day come. I I mean I like you said, I didn't drink in high school. Drank college was probably my biggest days of drinking, and then it just doesn't interest me really, so I don't do it. I don't. It's just one of those deals for me. But I like that you said you found new, more or less. It sounds like you found a new meaning in life. You know, I mean, it came back to you, and that is one of the things that I love our audience to hear repeatedly is it doesn't have to be just alcohol. It's about finding a new meaning, finding a new direction so you get to live the best life you can live. Fulfill that life, make it the best you can. And you know, like you were talking earlier in the games of of uh, Mount Mandan having a little accident with his head, you know. But those people that learn that stuff to help that wound, that's what this is all about. And you fixing, I would say it'd be a wound. And maybe I'm wrong, but becoming sober, now that wound is being healed. I mean, I know it's an everyday, it's an everyday thing because you have to be conscious about it. And it's funny how Ricky just got done saying it is actually becoming the cool thing right now. It's amazing how many people are coming out and saying, you know what, I really don't need to drink. I mean, and that's movie stars and athletes and whoever else, you know, and I just like people seeing that tomorrow is going to be another great day, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, anybody listening as well, like I recommend that you stay away from that gray area. Like if you're going to do what I did and just say like, just no more, I'm not doing that again, tell everybody that. Because if your friends know that they might be able to break you, they're going to try. They're going to be like, but it's my birthday and it's special. Just have one glass. You just have to like put your foot down and be like, don't even ask, don't even bother. Like, I'm never going to drink again, and it's done. And then everybody leaves you alone and there's no pressure. You can go play pool, you can go to the bar, you can go hang out with everybody, and it's not an issue. It's kind of like if there's a bowl of heroin needles that are for free right there in front of me, I'm still not going to do it. And everyone's like, oh, it's fine, it's free, go ahead, do the heroin. I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm not interested in that. Like, that's how I am with alcohol now. Like, it's not hard. It's not difficult. I don't have peer pressure. I'm not tempted at all. I'm just done, you know? And I think that's way easier, like I said, than trying to monitor when and where you're going to drink.
Yep. Love hearing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we like to do, or we like to talk about at Don't Die Rusty, is adventures, right? And so you guys are very well immersed in that. You guys it looks like you guys have done a lot of adventures. And you, Tony, you're kind of both sides of the spectrum. You got a lot of style on one side with the fashion stuff, and very like urban setting type stuff, and then on the flip side, you're out in wilderness and you're fishing, you're doing all kinds of stuff like that. And then Phil, I can see you're going on all kinds of adventures. You had a ton of beautiful pictures. I think it was a Grand Canyon that you were at, and this, I don't know, I take a deep dive, so this might have been a while ago, I don't know. But so tell us, we'll start with you, Phil. Tell us a story of like your favorite adventure, or maybe just like a wild story that you have from being out in the wilderness?
Oh yeah. Probably one of my favorites was one of the jobs that I got right after I graduated high school. We were just sitting around, didn't have anything to do, and we wanted to go and travel. We wanted to go to Europe. We wanted to go and see some of the world, but we didn't have any money. And so my best friend's uncle worked at a fish cannery in Alaska. And so we decided, screw it, we're going to go up there for a summer and we're going to work at this fish cannery on Kodiak Island, Larsen Bay, up in Alaska. So you fly into Kodiak Island, and then it's a 30-minute flight from Kodiak to Larsen Bay. It's a dirt landing strip. There's one stop sign, no paved roads or sidewalks. There's a post office and a general store, and that's it, aside from the actual cannery itself. So this is probably the most remote location that I have ever been to in my entire life. Yeah, Kodiak bears all over the place. One of the apexes of the entire story. So I was working at the fish cannery, and because it's so remote, you basically have to collect all of your garbage and take it up to a local dump, and they drop it all off there. And then at the end of the season, they burn it all. But before that happens, all the Kodiak grizzlies, the mamas and the cubs, they come down and they forage through all the garbage. Mm-hmm. So you roll up there with a truck full of garbage in the back, and there's probably 25 grizzly bears all wandering around your truck. And I'm in the back of the truck just bailing trash bags as fast as I possibly can. Saw a bear fight probably about 10 feet away. Daddy bear walks in and starts taking some swipes, and so the mama fights him off. And so I get in the cab. I'm like, let's get out of here, man. We're done. I'm done with this. So we're driving back down the road going towards the cannery. The guy who's driving, he goes, we can't shoot him because that's illegal. And he goes, but we should have bear mace. And he goes, look in the glove box. I open up the glove box and I go, yeah, we got bear mace here. He goes, is it expired? And I'm looking for the label on it, and he goes, let me see that thing. We had the truck is so old, there were no windows in it anymore. It was like held together by duct tape and bungee straps. And so he's driving and he's looking at the can of bear mace, and he goes, I wonder what it smells like. And he sprays some out the window and then sticks his head out and gets a face full of bear mace.
What?
I immediately grabbed the steering wheel. And he's immediately like, eyes are swollen shut. Blood is coming out the nose. I grab the wheel. I'm like, dude, are you okay? Stop. He goes, it's okay, man. It's okay. I go, are you okay? He goes, no, it's okay to laugh. I go, I'm not laughing, man. I just want to make sure you're okay. So I basically drive back in the passenger seat as he's like completely, basically incapacitated by bear mace. So that's probably one of my favorite wilderness stories right there.
Oh my God.
Wow. What the heck? That's funny. Yeah, that's a good one. How about you, Tony?
Man, like I've been trying to rack my brain on like, which story do we tell here?
Right.
I love adventures.
Mm-hmm.
All my friends know, like I'm an adventure junkie. I think the best story to tell right now is probably the first one where I had a real sense of freedom. I think I was like 23, and I was so that's about 15 years ago. And at the time I was a fashion designer, but I was burning out really, really hard. Being in the fashion industry is not as cool as you think it is. The fashion shows are fun for sure, but everything else behind the scenes is really hard. Mm-hmm. Anyways, I was burning out, and I was just going to sort of run away a little bit. So in the middle of the night, I think I went on eBay and I bought a Hawaiian sling to go spearfishing. I bought some flippers and some goggles, and then I booked a flight down to Costa Rica. I didn't tell anybody, but one of my buddies did find out casually, but I didn't expect what happened next. He goes, I'm not going to let you go down to the jungle in Costa Rica by yourself. You've never even been there before. He goes, I'm going to come with you. And I'm like, all right, 2 idiots in the jungle, like 2 city boys in the jungle. Let's go. And we rented there's this guy down there that for $20 a night, you basically get a bed with a bug net on it, but it's open to the environment. And then there's a communal kitchen. So that was kind of rad. So we did that. Again, we had no idea what we were doing. We'd never been there before. I'm just winging everything. And I love winging it. I love throwing myself in the deep end of the pool and just finding out if I can swim or not, you know? Mm-hmm. So I did that with the jungle. and had an absolute blast down there. And I remember one time, or the first time I ever went spearfishing, I put on all the gear. We go down to the water, and there's like these big waves smashing up on the cliffs, but I didn't know where to go. I was just like, well, that looks like the calmest water, even though it does look dangerous. And so we jump in, and once you get underwater, it's a lot safer. It's at the surface that it's more dangerous. Anyways, I'm underwater just spearing like an idiot with my Hawaiian sling, just trying to stab something. I finally do get a fish, like pin it against a rock. It's a decent sized fish. I come up to the surface like a hero with my, spear in the air, my fish on the end of it. And I'm like, yeah, I did it. Like, I'm so stoked, right? Like, I'm in the jungle. I feel free. Like, I have no responsibilities. I just speared a fish for the first time, like teaching myself. And I look over at my buddy, and he had just gotten chucked up on the rocks by a wave. And so I'm having like a victory moment, and I'm wanting him to celebrate with me. And I notice that it's just blood coming all down his chest after getting thrown up against the rocks. And I'm like, man, we are not having the same moment right now. I mean, two totally different experiences.
Yep.
But yeah, that whole trip though was epic. Just to do that at that age, figuring out that I am tough enough to survive in these some wild situations that we were in. Adaptable, creative, being able to apply those things and figure it out in nature and take care of myself. We did that for about 10 days and had an absolute blast, just completely winging it in the jungle. It's great.
That's cool. That's a great story. So, maybe not so well, I guess maybe not in that moment for your buddy, right? Like at that point he was probably like, man, maybe I should have just let him come down here by himself.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That whole trip was so cool. I mean, I remember at one point we went to this little restaurant just to grab a snack, and it was like a family owned, little restaurant, basically out of their house. And while we were talking to them, they didn't really speak English, we didn't really speak Spanish, but we were able to figure it out, And we told them that we were looking for waterfalls. We wanted to like go to waterfalls that no one's ever been to before, not the ones on the map, like the secret ones that are on private property. And they shut down the restaurant, and the father of the server told us to get in his truck, and he only had one arm. He had like chopped it off doing something dangerous in the jungle, and took us out to like this private property, and we just trusted him like that he wasn't going to kill us out there. And he showed us these really epic private waterfalls that you're not going to find on any map or on Google or anything like that, because it's on private property. And it's just the people down there is basically my point. The people down there are just so friendly and loving and giving. It was a beautiful experience.
Yeah, Rick's talked about that too, about just, how you, again, part of the Don't Die Rusty mindset is, getting off the couch and going and doing things, explore different cultures, explore everything, not just necessarily go out into the wilderness and into solace, but, just explore the world and explore the country for that matter. Like, I love the idea, like Phil, you were talking about just throwing a dart at the map. I'm like, man, I would love to do that. Like, that would just be a blast. Just, all right, here's where we're going. That sounds awesome.
So I kind of expanded on that. So I had one map of Oregon. And so once a month I would go to a location in Oregon. Then I had a map of the United States. And my plan was once every 6 months, I would go to a point on the United States. And then I had a map of the world. And my goal was every year to go to a different place in the world. So that's kind of like the grand scheme.
There you
right
go.
there.
Cool.
There
Very
you go.
cool.
The moral of the story is that if you throw a dart at a map, you'll end up with a pilot for a TV show.
Well,
I was going to say, well, Rick, if we utilize Tony's marketing strategies, maybe if he can be a consultant for Don't Die Rusty, soon enough, we'll be able to start throwing darts at the map and just go wherever we want to go, man.
There we go.
I'm not gonna actually. I'm just going to say it. So I mentioned earlier the Master Marketing Academy that I teach 4 times a year. I really want to do that for people within this community, within the survival and bushcraft community. I'll just like make it as cheap as possible, so I'm not losing money. But and then just have anybody that wants to come out, any survivalist, you guys, anybody from the Georgia Bushcraft Network. That's an entrepreneur or building a brand. I've got so many, I have 600 clients across the country, and I'm in a different city every week. meaning I have all the tools. Like I learn from everyone that I interact with. Like I don't just give, like I'm learning from them as well. So my bag of tricks is insane. And I'd love to share that with as many people as possible within this really beautiful community that I feel privileged to be a part of now.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. You got to keep us updated on that and let us know, because that'd definitely be something
Definitely.
that we would have interest in for sure.
Because I think this is a movement. Don't Die Rusty is a movement. I mean, if it's funny how some people, it started out and they ask, what is Don't Die Rusty? But then everybody takes it upon themselves to define what Don't Die Rusty is to them. And to us, it's about chasing your dreams. It's about living your best life. I mean, living a fulfilled life and just being the best person you can be. And it's funny, I mean, we don't want to ever be in a niche, right? I mean, we talk to so many different people that have so many different interests, but everybody has their own way of not dying rusty, and everybody seems to feel what we're trying to get out there. And it's so fun to talk to, like, I mean, Ricky and I talk about this all the time, is we get to talk to you. And this is where Don't Die Rusty has taken us, is to talk to so many different people and learn so much. And that's, I, the only regret that I have right now is that I'm not younger and would have done this earlier, because everything I learned from you guys or whoever we've have conversations with, I feel like my sponge is not full yet, you know what I mean? And I just want to keep on learning. And it's not that I'm old, it's just that I just wish I would have done it earlier, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're at that stage though where you get to play the mentor character, and that's
You're
a
the
really
sage.
powerful. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a powerful place to be.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
I've got a T-shirt idea for you guys. I want to pitch to you.
All right.
Be Rusty. Don't smell the bear spray.
All right. Yeah.
Don't.
Mine's gonna say smell the bear spray.
Picture of a guy spraying himself in the face.
There you go.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. Well, guys, we got one last question that we like to ask everybody, and I think Rick, I'll give you the honors, my man. Go ahead.
Well, all right. Well, the last question we ask is, and each of you answer it separately, please. But what's the good life to Phil, and what's the good life to Tony?
What's the good life for Phil? The good life for me, I'm still trying to figure that out. I know it involves family, my mom, my sister, her 6 kids, my brother, he's down in Texas. I'm on a journey right now to try and find some self-fulfillment. I've kind of been on a journey for a long time where I've derived a lot of my personal value from the things that I generate and create, rather than my internal morals and values. And so I'm taking another look at those and trying to recalibrate some of that stuff, so that I'm living more authentically and for myself, rather than just what I can produce. And I think that, yeah, by abiding by those values and just being a good man, and having basic comforts. I don't need a lot. I'm actually rejecting a lot of those things lately, as I've been going through the survival games and all that kind of stuff, kind of shedding a lot of the unnecessary. That would be the good life for me.
Yeah, I like that.
I would say the good life for me is exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm loving life right now. Like the good life for me is having the opportunity to build and do really cool things with like the friends that I love and my family. Like my mom, who is a phenomenal consultant and just a phenomenal mentor. She was at the survival game. She ran base camp. She made sure that everything ran smoothly behind the scenes. It's one of those jobs that people don't always appreciate, but it's really important. to make sure that the experience is beautiful for everybody. So you're able to do that with my family. My sister was there when we were testing out some of the survival skills to figure out, like, are we going to put this in the competition? Are we going to put this in the show? I was doing that with like my niece and nephew, like they're like 9 years old and 11 years old. And it's so fun to teach them this stuff. And so, and then just seeing like everybody excited about these things that are just coming out of mine and Phil's heads. Like, these are just our random ideas. The survival games did not exist before we thought of it. And so, to me, the good life, is being able to have the opportunity to pursue your passions and your dreams and do it with the people that you love. And I'm in the midst of that right now. So I am absolutely loving life lately. What's a good life for you, Rick?
Well, the good life to me is right now, it's meeting, like I just said, meeting the people I'm meeting and filling up the sponge that I'm curious and I want to know about all types of people. It's going on the adventures and realizing life is not given every day, and knowing that I cherish every day, every sunrise, every every moment that I can, and trying to be the best person I am. And that's the good life to me, is living that lifestyle and trying to show it. I'm I'm not a preacher in the aspect, but I do like I go, I'll have a conversation about maybe what we talked about tonight, about some things, and just get people excited about living their life, because right now I see so many people that are so caught up in, they have blinders on, and I want to take those blinders off. And you guys talking to us, that's, you don't, I mean, I don't think our guests understand how much of a influence you are on us, and we hope that we can influence people and you influence people, and we start changing this world and making it a better place. So
Love that.
maybe I said it, I don't know, but this is just a good life right now. I'm living. Don't Die Rusty is I mean, you understand that, both of you understand, all three, four of us understand that we get tired sometimes and you don't see the end of the tunnel at times, but you know what? I enjoy having this conversation at night, or whenever we can have a podcast, no, mostly at night, but I enjoy and I look forward to, like I said, filling up the sponge that I have here in my brain, and learning and hopefully putting it out there.
I love
That's a
it.
good
Well,
one.
thank you for letting us be part of your passion.
Yeah,
Yes, you guys are awesome.
that's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, I guess since we're all going around the table here, good life for me right now is just my family. Every decision I make every day is about them, and my wife, and we've got a daughter. She just turned 4, and then she has a son. He's 12. He's just getting into basketball. He's becoming a basketball star, so it's really fun to watch that. And part of what we're doing with the Don't Die Rusty thing is, this is it's Rick's brainchild, and then my creative director side and technological brain have kind of come in on the backside and fed that and helped with the branding side of things, and a lot of that stuff I'm learning as I go too. But that's really kind of the good life right now, is just all the decisions we're making towards our family. My wife is an amazing artist, and so she's got a business that is thriving in that respect. And so just doing everything that we can to get out of the rat race and kind of do some things for ourselves, and be able to focus on just a little less work and more play.
That would be the good life.
There you go.
Yes, and I appreciate you guys coming on and telling us about the P&W, the Northwest Games, and I appreciate the conversation we had.
Yeah, thank you. We'll keep you in the loop on any new developments as they come up. And if you want to talk to a couple of participants, we can connect you with them as well.
Well, we would love that.
That would be fantastic. Absolutely.
Yeah, Dalton and Joel, the guys who took second place, they have a very interesting story.
Well, that's very
Yeah,
cool.
that'd be great. Yeah, if you could connect us with them, that'd be fantastic.
It'd be really funny if you had like Joel on and Dalton, but then also Sam Strong from Naked and Afraid on.
Mhm.
And you'd just be like, Joel, how did you beat Sam? What the hell?
Sam's very passionate about it.
Yeah, that dude doesn't play. He goes
Love
hard.
it.
Oh, that's great. Well, keep an eye out for a casting call application coming from me here sometime soon. And once again, thanks so much. Well, Don't Die Rusty Nation. That brings us to the end of this episode. Tony, Phil, thanks again so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, be sure to head over to @PNW Survival Games on Instagram. There you'll get a peek at how the games work. Also check out the website, pnwsurvivalgames.com. You can find us at Don't Die Rusty on Instagram and on Facebook. If you're listening, be sure to do us a favor and give us a rating and review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. As always, be sure to follow your dreams. And of course, don't die rusty.
Don't die rusty.